Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and it's been a pretty good week on the whole, largely on the altcoin side, and largely actually on the Solana side, which is a little bit unfortunate because my Solana is still pretty much all in NFTs, and yeah, they're not doing particularly well. So at some point, I'm probably going to have to write off a reasonably large amount of this Solana. So always a little bit sort of disappointing when that's the biggest outperformer. But there you go. They might come back. But yeah, my sort of semi-fake portfolio gain this week is up 44,000 ish, about just under 10%. Obviously, the Bitcoin gain and the Ethereum gains and everything else are all real. So there is that. But yeah, have a look at some news. The CoinShares report. We had 352 million in outflows last week, with volumes down. So yeah, people weren't particularly happy. This was pretty much all in Ethereum. 912 million in outflows. We did sort of signal that last week that was going to be the case from the what's name Farside Investors ETF flows. We knew that Bitcoin had been gaining a reasonable amount and Ethereum had been losing, but yeah, there's the numbers. 523 million into Bitcoin. We also had some inflows in elsewhere. Multi-asset, 4 million, which is a tiny amount compared to their AUM. And Solana and XRP do seem to be, both in parallel, getting the inflows. 16 million for Solana, 14.7 for XRP. So not too bad. Tiny little amount into Sui as well. A little bit out of Cardano, a little bit into Kronos, and a little bit into Chainlink. So quite interesting. Not a lot out, well, a tiny amount out of the others as well. And yeah, by country, Germany with 85 million inflow. That's sort of reasonably big, over 1% of AUM. And yeah, the rest of the numbers all very, very small. And sort of obviously big outflow from the US. Looking at this week's flows, the little Diddy Solana one first, sort of done quite well towards the end of the week. Had a couple of 0 days, Monday and Tuesday, and then got 3.47 and 5.5 million in, which is pretty good for a small ETF, to be fair. Most of the sort of the Bloomberg guys, I think, sort of say if you get 100 million in your ETF, especially for sort of smallish firms. I don't know how big Rex Osprey are, but they're not BlackRock, of course. They're not Fidelity. So yeah, to have 200 million in your fund or 200 million in inflows. I would imagine the assets under management is much more than that with the rise in Solana. So yeah, they're doing pretty well. On the Ethereum side, they have resumed net inflows. Did have an outflow on Monday, which was uncharacteristically all BlackRock. Inflows into Fidelity and Grayscale, including the old Grayscale, which is always a little bit crazy. But then, yeah, flipped to net inflows for the rest of the week. 44 million, 171, 113, and 405 million on the Friday, which was pretty good, spread across pretty much all of the providers. Fidelity with more than, ever so slightly more than BlackRock, which is pretty good. Fidelity one's, what is that, a fifth, a sixth of the size of the BlackRock one. And again, it's inflows 4 out of 5 days to the old 2.5% fee Grayscale ETF. So they must be laughing. Obviously inflows into the new Grayscale one as well, but yeah, people seem to love this, the old Grayscale one, whatever it is, arbitrage with futures or something, because it's more volatile, but yeah, people piling into that. Similarly, on the Bitcoin side, although not, not a lot of money going into the old grayscale one, which looks a little bit more healthy at least. But yeah, Monday, 360 million into the ETF, spread reasonably well across, quite a lot into Fidelity there, where Monday was a negative for the Ethereum ones. Tuesday, you had inflows into BlackRock and then sort of outflows from everyone else, but it was still slightly net positive. And then, yeah, 740 million, 552 and 642 in on Friday. So it's made it a very strong week of inflows. I'm sort of not sure when exactly they buy the Bitcoin from Friday's purchases, whether that's already gone in and they sort of do it late at night, or whether they sort of get someone to buy it at the weekend. Not entirely sure on that. Would have to have a read up. Looking at the treasuries, Metaplanet were quite quiet this week, 136 Bitcoin. They now hold 20,136. Average is moving up, 103,196 average now. MicroStrategy bought 1,955, so reasonable buy for them, I suppose. Nothing like the buys that they had been doing, but yeah, for once a buy below the current price, 111,196. So that's pretty good. They had been sort of buying over the price once they announced it for a few weeks, I think. And yeah, their average is sort of obviously pushing up again, 73,880 now. Yeah, the other sort of treasuries, it looks like, had been relatively quiet. Sort of various firms making offerings and saying they're going to raise hundreds of millions. The Smarter Web company are down to fairly small acquisitions now, 30 Bitcoin. They were sort of at 250 Bitcoin in previous weeks, so they've certainly slowed down. And there wasn't a huge amount of other purchases. I think that was pretty much it. Yeah. So there you go. A little bit quiet on the non-Metaplanet and strategy companies. I think this is partly the reason, though. The sort of quietness is on the Bitcoin buying, and the sort of hot new thing at the moment seems to be buying altcoins in public companies. Obviously, you had Tom Lee's Bitmine Technologies, whatever they're called. Yeah, Bitmine Immersion Technologies. They bought $200 million worth of Ethereum this week, 46,225. So that is rather a lot of Ethereum. And yeah, they now hold over $9 billion worth. And you're getting sort of various other companies, spinning up and saying that they want to buy even smaller altcoins. So that's a little bit strange. You're getting you had 8Co Holdings, an e-commerce inventory management platform. I think the underlying holding generally doesn't matter. They're just sort of looking for, basically zombie companies that happen to have a little bit of cash on the balance sheet and are solvent and sort of can raise a load of money. But yeah, they were up 30x on Monday after they planned to raise 270 million to buy WorldCoin. So really are going down in the depths, I suppose. It's not like it's the sort of penny stock coins outside the top 500, but it's not even in the top 10. So I would call that sort of smaller altcoins. Had another one buying Doge, Clean Core Solutions, bought $130 million worth of Doge. They now crossed over 500 million Doge. They want to get to 1 billion Doge, so that would be another sort of maybe 130 million if the price doesn't rise. And yeah, why a public company wants to hold a great deal of Dogecoin is a little bit unusual, and why sort of traditional finance companies, institutions would be sort of issuing private placements and all sorts to to fund them to buy Doge. I'm not sure. I sort of understood it when it was Bitcoin, but hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe they they just see it as attractive and sort of they get the exit liquidity with these companies rising. As we said on the other one, sort of 20x, 30x, and they can sort of sell the shares potentially before that 30x dissipates, and that's better than sort of buying other deals that they were maybe interested in. It does seem the sort of biggest loser in these is the retail buyers that sort of buy these once it goes up that much, or the ones who buy it to make it go up that much. A little bit strange, and I do think part of the reason for these companies is sort of the delays on the spot ETFs. It does seem basically any spot ETF for any altcoin is just continuing to get delayed. We sort of thought this was going to be the SEC that was approving everything a lot quicker, and I think there's maybe just something that's holding them back because they are just basically delaying everything. Whether they want the clarity sort of market structure bill to be put through, not sure, but yeah, we're still basically getting the sort of Gary Gensler SEC style delay, and then sort of finally make a decision on some of these. But I think most of these altcoin ones, Doge, Chainlink, etc., have mostly sort of still got a few months to run until it's final decision time. Some of them are potentially going through the back door, it seems, to get them listed. The Rex Osprey Sol ETF sort of wasn't really listed through the through traditional means. I didn't really sort of dig too deep into how they got it through, but everyone was sort of saying it was somewhat on a technicality, and it looks like they may be doing the same thing with an XRP ETF. So you don't sort of get the flood of money that you would do, I expect, if it was Fidelity and BlackRock and the usual other players, but you get some money into these. As we said, the Solana one has had over 200 million in inflows, and yeah, assets under management sort of much higher than that. So an XRP one potentially launching this coming week. I didn't think we would be getting this quite so soon as well. We sort of mentioned the Smarter Web company being the biggest, I believe the biggest Bitcoin Treasury company in the UK, are already looking at potentially buying other smaller treasuries that are trading at a discount to their Bitcoin value, the sort of so-called MNAV, taking into account any convertible debt and the Bitcoin that they hold, and sort of whether the company is trading for more or less than that. And it sounds like Smarter Web Company are still trading above theirs, although they've fallen 73% from their mid-June peak. So you can see sort of quite how volatile these are. Obviously, Bitcoin is significantly up from mid-June time. Well, maybe not significantly up. I think we all thought it would be a bit higher than it is now. But yeah, he says we probably got overvalued and now we're almost certainly undervalued. I'm not sure I would quite agree with that, but yeah, he's sort of potentially looking at buying up some of these other companies, and sort of the headline is saying wanting to get into the FTSE 100. I'm not sure whether that's similar to the S&P 500 and whether there's sort of rules that you need to have to pass to get into the FTSE 100, or whether it is purely just market cap. And I don't think you get a huge amount of inflows for being in the FTSE 100. We are sort of a vanishingly small amount of the global stock market, but yeah, it would be sort of a bit of an achievement, I suppose. Seeing quite a lot of this at the moment as well. Polymarket teaming up with Chainlink, sort of seeing more, partnerships with Chainlink basically, which I think is very good. Or sort of seeing it as, a little bit of a picks and shovels bet basically on the crypto market. They sort of seem to have, fingers in many pies around data, data with sort of DeFi and data with linking TradFi to the crypto world. And yeah, this just seemed like another solid partnership. Polymarket obviously want to use their use Chainlink's data to verify, whether things have happened or not. They have very, very strange betting markets on sort of real world events, and it's sometimes difficult to verify that things have happened. So obviously the people on Polymarket betting as well, want these sort of bets to be settled as quickly as possible. So Chainlink sort of providing them solid data can help for that. And it sounds like Polymarket are raising money again, valuing them at a $10 billion market cap. So yeah, that's very lofty, but I suppose Polymarket are making news all over the world now. They're certainly in sort of traditional finance and traditional news. You hear sort of the Polymarket odds for X, Y, and Z. They were talking about it during the Trump election, and various other things. So that was good, and good for Chainlink. Often check on the stablecoin inflows as well, just sort of see how much is coming on chain. Basically, I don't think this is quite the indicator that it used to be. This sort of used to be a sign of people getting into, if people were getting into Tether, it was sort of with a view of pretty much imminently buying crypto with it. So people would sometimes go off this sort of signal if there was a large spike in Tether printing, it's suddenly going to go into altcoins or something. Whereas, as we sort of know, a lot of people are buying Tether because they're in sort of third world countries, developing countries, and wanting to protect themselves from inflation. So they're quite happy just holding USDT. It's sort of better than their own currency, even if we call it, fiat debasing currency. And people in Western countries, or in the US especially, are wanting to get out of the dollar into something that isn't debasing. If your home currency is debasing at 5 times the rate of the dollar, then USDT can look quite attractive, and a lot of these people are blocked from buying certain other things. They can't just go and buy Apple stock or whatever. So they can buy Tether if they have sort of basically a phone and the internet. So I've in the last month seen $5 billion rise in the market cap of Tether, and I mean, if you look at the yearly, it's just extremely steady up basically since around about the turn of the year. You had a small drop to 137, and then in 9 months it's up to 170. So very, very steady for Tether. A little bit different with USDC. The chart's always looked a little bit different. It's sort of very lumpy. It sort of goes up in spurts of gain, and then sort of very flat for a while. Look at the yearly chart. It's sort of, you had October last year to sort of January, February time, a big spike up, and then sort of a long flat period. And certainly since sort of early August, really, early to mid-August, you've seen quite a spike, $10 billion in sort of just over a month. And I would say USDC is possibly a better signal of money going into other crypto, because USDC is largely in the regulated areas. So yeah, that would, if people are buying USDC in America, there isn't much need for them to just sit in USDC. They're presumably buying it for a reason. Similarly in Europe, I would say USDC is sort of the main stable coin for places like Coinbase, and I can't imagine people are just buying USDC and sitting in USDC. It would be a little bit strange. Some people may be buying it to try and get DeFi yields and that sort of thing, to get higher interest rate than what they can get in the bank, say. I think Europe down to 2.25% interest rates now, so yeah, could be a little bit of that, but I would imagine more of this goes into altcoins. Things still looking a little bit rough for the Bitcoin miners as well on the difficulty side. Sort of highlighted that we were sitting relatively sort of constantly above 1 zeta hash, and yeah, the last week we spent quite a long time above that. Have sort of come down into the weekend, or sort of Friday and the weekend. You know, it's come down sort of to the 900s and into the 800s, but yeah, this morning has since rocketed back up to 1.044 zeta hash. So yeah, that's not ideal, and the difficulty we know sort of went up to 136. Wasn't ideal. I was sort of hoping for hash rate maybe to come down a little bit, and that to come back down, but obviously this consistently sitting above 1 zeta hash means it does carry on. This was higher, admittedly. This was 9 minutes, 9.25 minutes earlier this week, and the rise was sort of up to 147, I think. It's sort of slipped down now, and is projecting this coming Thursday another 4% rise. So, you know, if that sticks, it's 141 from 130 just, you know, a week ago, you know, a little over a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I am mindful of this with my Bitcoin miners, and sort of if we keep saying seeing strong gains on, you know, not a huge amount of Bitcoin price, then yeah, I will be sort of looking to take more profits, basically, and especially sort of rises on the AI side. If the sort of foundation of their business, you know, original foundation is not doing so well, the Bitcoin mining is sort of is designed to pay for, you know, a lot of the AI investments, is not doing so well, then yeah, you could sort of hit a bit of a roadblock. And you know, people like Hive, who are sort of high cost miners with not a lot of AI, or sort of CleanSpark and Marathon and people like that, who are basically all in on, you know, they have reasonably low electric costs, but are all in on Bitcoin. They don't like Bitcoin difficulty rising at all. And not much has changed on the global liquidity chart. We've had a slight rise in Bitcoin in the last week, and a sort of slight rise in the, well, you know, an even smaller rise in the global liquidity. It's sort of trickling up very, very slowly, sort of dollar coming back down again, the dollar index coming back down, and a little bit more printing sort of elsewhere. I think I have had to. Oh no, I excluded Japan for a little bit during the week because they sort of spiked massively up. There was a bit of an error in the data, I think, and they sort of seem to have fixed that. But yeah, still got this enormous, great big gap, biggest there's been for the 2 years now since the ETFs started. And yeah, sort of round about this time is when you get the sort of large spike up from sort of 161,000 implied price based on, you know, the liquidity line. Spikes up from 161 to 185 sort of pretty much in the next week. So yeah, that will make the divergence even bigger if we don't get a decent price rise. So we'll see. You know, I keep sort of saying this is somewhat decoupling, but yeah, I'm patient. We'll just keep watching it. So seeing what has done well, coins for the week. Bitcoin is 4% up. Solana 20.7%. So as I say, that is a little bit disappointing considering I'm not really getting a lot of that gain. I don't really want to sort of just write off a lot of this Solana because sort of reporting and tax reasons and things. It's, you know, it's just makes the ledger a little bit more complicated. But yeah, I don't really have all of that. Ethereum up 8%, done pretty well for the week. Chainlink up 9.6%. Metaplex, still not really seen any significant news. That was up strongly last week, and it's up 39% for the week. So yeah, maybe people sort of using NFTs, and I think they're involved in meme coins as well, the sort of back end of that. So yeah, that seemed very interesting. Radium up 9.6%, G2 up 9%. So a lot of the Sol ecosystem coins doing well off the back of Solana rising. Helium up 18.7%. Their metrics sort of hitting all-time highs again. New daily active user high and carrier offload high. So that's good. And Honey still doing almost nothing, but is up 4% on the week. Admittedly, well, yeah, I reordered these into cash order, but Metaplex is the only one that has now gone slightly positive. I think Helium was sort of at some point, but not quite at the moment. But yeah, Metaplex is doing well, to be fair. So yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and like and subscribe. See you soon.